a traffic stop last night. The Missouri Highway Patrol says Officer Gary Michael died after a shootout with driver Ian McCarthy in Clinton, about 75 miles southeast of Kansas City. McCarthy drove away after the gun battle, crashed the vehicle, and ran off. Meanwhile, the hunt for an escaped Ohio inmate is ramping up in Toledo. Federal agents joined sheriff's deputies in the search for suspected rapist Brandon Lee Powell, who's been on the run since Friday. Taylor Swift will be center stage in an unusual venue for the pop star. Swift is expected to take the stand in a civil suit. Jury selection began today in the case of a former Denver radio host who claims Swift got him fired from his job after she falsely accused him of putting his hand up her skirt while the two posed for a photo together in 2013. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio.
So you went to dinner last night and you had your favorite pasta. Ugh. Or maybe you had a heavy, spicy meal and it left you. Ugh. GetTheT.com. Maybe you mowed down a huge steak and your plumbing is all plugged. Ugh. GetTheT.com. Our super strength tea will take care of your occasional. Ugh. It's all organic and non-GMO. Get rid of ugh. We have so many great supplements, but our super tea is number one. GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com.
It's time to make the Tri-City Center in Redlands a regular part of your weekly shopping experience. Tri-City is home to a wide assortment of quality businesses. Soon, the Tri-City Center will become home to DC Furniture and Ocean Aquatics. You can purchase good quality furniture and accessories at DC Furniture. Ocean Aquatics will offer a wide variety of exotic tropical fish along with food, accessories, and tanks of all shapes and sizes for every home or business. The Tri-City Center is located just off the I-10 between Alabama and the Tennessee exits in Redlands. Visit the Tri-City Center today and discover why it's called the Mall with a Heart.
KCAA.
I am excited to be back here with you today, man. I'm glad you're all tuning in. We got a great show lined up. We got another call-in guest as an author and a nationally known speaker. He's written a book recently called Why I Don't Call Myself Gay, How I Reclaimed My Sexual Reality and Found Peace. His name is Daniel C. Mattson, and he's going to come on the show a little bit later on, and we're going to talk to him about this book. Sounds like it might be a little controversial. And after my rant last week about freedom of speech, I guess we're just going to invite the controversy. But no, he's not that controversial. And I actually read through the book, and man, it was really touching, really, really heartfelt. Really, I wasn't expecting it to be quite as sensitive as it was. And I don't know why, but it was pretty sensitive. And it touched my heart. So we're going to have him on in a little bit and talk to him about the book and his little speaking tour. So tooting my own horn again about my work at DFC Wealth Management. We're up over 17% year to date. Yay. S&P 500 is trailing us at 11.93% up. And like I said before, and I'll say it again, the market is going gangbusters, and we are in a raging bull market. And I'll give you a little more information on that in the fourth segment of the show towards the end. And we're going to talk a little bit about markets. But right now, I want to tell you, man, how did you like my rant last week about freedom of speech? Woo! I was on fire. I just couldn't believe they were having the hearing in Washington 3 weeks ago. And it just got me all fired up. I couldn't believe it. The funny thing is that when I wrote my book, The Family Man's Stock Market Volatility Survival Guide, part of becoming an adult is taking personal responsibility, especially for your behavior, especially for your thinking, and the way that you conduct yourself. Oh man! And so that has a lot to do with freedom, and has a lot to do with freedom of speech. Children act out emotionally, and they take very little responsibility for themselves, and they have to be taught to take responsibility for themselves. That's the job of parents: teach your kids how to be responsible, and not just responsible to stuff, but to themselves, to control their emotions, to control their reactions, to be able to take it on the chin and get back up again, not to fall apart at the first sign of, difficulty or trouble or struggle in their life. Oh, I'm not good at math. Boo-hoo, I quit math. No, no, no. You just get in. Let's work this out. We'll work it out together. They got to stay involved. They got to, help them through the stuff so that they can learn how to help themselves. And so they have to be taught. But adults, however, they have the responsibility of taking on the needs of others. And that's an important key to success, to the success of adulthood. Growing up means exactly that, taking on responsibility, especially for others, your wife, your kids, your extended family, your community. Grown-ups live a life of sacrifice, and this means struggle. It means growth. And it's not always easy. It's like going to the gym, you gain an extra 5-10 pounds. You're like, oh man, I remember when I was in shape. And then you just kind of got to get back into it. It's not going to be easy. It's going to, when I was 21, I smoked like a fiend. Yeah, I was 21. It was crazy. And I was like, you're killing yourself. You got to quit. And I tried to quit like 7 or 8 times. It was really, really difficult. Finally, I quit. But one of the things I did was I replaced the smoking habit with exercise habit. So every time I felt like I wanted a cigarette, I'd go for a run, or I'd, in my office, I'd drop and do some push-ups or some sit-ups. I was kind of mercenary about it, but I got pretty strong. And as a matter of fact, after 3 years of not smoking, I was up to running 3 miles a day, but quick. I ran 3 miles in 15 minutes. And I tell that to people sometimes, and they're like, man, that was fast. It was the fastest I'd ever run. I timed it. It wasn't on a track, but man, I just hit my stopwatch and took off 3 miles down the road. It was 15 minutes later, and I felt I was in pretty good shape, and I was lifting weights. And I remember when I first started lifting weights, I got stuck under the barbell at the bench press, and I was like, help, help. And these 2 big giant bodybuilder guys had to come over and lift the bar off of me, and they were laughing, and I felt embarrassed, but I didn't quit. I wanted to get in shape. And I got to where I was bench pressed at 315 pounds. That was pretty good. I can't do that now, but back in the day. So my whole point of all that is that, sometimes you have difficulty and struggle, but if you learn to take responsibility for yourself and not be a crybaby and run to a safe space, then you can overcome those difficulties and you can achieve some pretty good things in your life. I mean, I'm thinking about a guy named Peter Dinklage who they had a video about him, and it started cracking me up because the first thing on the video says he was born with a normal size head, but short limbs. And I'm like, oh boy, where's this thing going? But then it went on to talk about as a teenager, he had a lot of frustration and anger, and he couldn't fit in school. And he left home to start his own theater company finally after he graduated. And it was a total disaster failure, just crash and burn. He was broke and homeless. He worked several office jobs just to make ends meet, but he couldn't afford an apartment, so he was just sofa hopping at all of his friends' houses. And he kept trying to be an actor, but he decided he wasn't going to take any role that exploited his dwarfism. And so he said he missed out on a lot of acting opportunities, but he never gave up. And then he got the Game of Thrones and after a little bit, he became a fan favorite. And so he says, don't wait until someone else tells you you're ready. Quote, I waited a long time out in the world before I gave myself permission to fail. Now, that's really interesting. He gave himself permission to fail because that's what happens when you're struggling and trying hard. You fail, you don't give up, you fail again. He says, don't ask anybody if you're ready. Don't tell everybody that you are ready. Just do it. The world is yours, he says. I think it reminds me of this guy, Nick Vujicic. I've talked about him before, and you probably know him from his videos. He was born without any arms and legs at all. He just has a torso and a head. And he said, he gives a speech about, falling down and getting back up again and how hard it is in his case to get back up again, especially when you're armless and legless. He says it's never over until you give up. And that's when it's over. And then that reminds me of another video I saw about Denzel Washington talking about the struggles that he had becoming an actor. And he says that you've got to give it all you've got. And that's the key. The key is understanding those things, that you're going to fail, that you can never give up, and that you've got to give it everything you've got. And it just reminds me of getting under those weights and almost getting, my chest cavity crushed by them. But staying at it and working and starting a lot lighter, going a lot heavier, and finally making it to a significant level of health. Guys like Peter Dinklage, guys like Nick Vujicic, Denzel Washington, most of the people that you know that are famous and wealthy and have done something important with their lives had struggles along the way, and they were difficult struggles, and they felt like giving up. I mean, if you stop and think about it, there was a time when Jesus himself felt like he was abandoned. Father, why have you forsaken me? And you know what? He didn't give up. Thank goodness for us. He could have just said, no, somebody else do the sacrifice stuff. I don't think it's for me today. But he didn't. And for the sake of the whole world, he gave his life for us. And that, quite frankly, I'm pretty grateful about that. So we've got a pretty good show coming up. I want to talk to you again about getting my book, The Family Man Stock Market Volatility Survival Guide, How to Defend Your Family in Any Economy. I've said this a couple of times before, but I probably should have named it something else, at least a lot shorter. But it's got a lot of good lessons in there about becoming an adult and how the culture has transitioned away from developing any ceremonies, especially for men, for becoming an adult. And talk about taking responsibility. Talk about what women like. Every time I talk to a lady, and especially when I used to be dating, they would be like, I'm tired of these guys. They're all weak. They're all sniveling. They're crybabies. So in part of the book, I tell you how to man up. And that's why it's called The Family Man Stock Market Volatility Survival Guide. This is Donald Carpenter with the Family Man's Faith and Finance Show. We'll be right back.
NBC Talk Radio, 1050 AM.
Some combinations were just meant to go together. Chips and salsa, refrigerator and freezer, the internet, and those cute little cat videos. At State Farm, there's another combination meant to go together, home and auto, as in combining your home and auto insurance with one agent, which leads to another combination, saving dollars and cents. Your State Farm agent, the DeSalvo Insurance Agency, is here to help life go right. Combine home and auto and see how much you can save. For more information, call the DeSalvo Insurance Agency at 310-553-0241 in Beverly Hills, or find him on the web at BillDeSalvo.com. That's BILLDISALVO.com.
Hi, this is Donald Carpenter. I've written a pretty interesting book. It's called The Family Man Stock Market Volatility Survival Guide, How to Defend Your Family in Any Economy. To pick up a copy of The Family Man Stock Market Volatility Survival Guide, go to Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, or the website FamilyManSMVSG.com.
We want to share a secret with you. There's a new and revolutionary way to bring the Earth's most effective organic plant extracts directly to your skin in a pure and healthy way. Lule Botanicals utilizes a breakthrough process called supercritical plant extraction. Your skin will radiate vitality and health like never before. No one wants to kiss an alligator face. Now they won't have to. Visit us on the web at www.lulebotanicals.com. That's LULEBOTANICALS.com. To get your 20% discount, use promo code LLB20.
Dr. Tatsuo Hirano asks, why suffer and ignore your pain and illness? Stop it before it gets out of control. Acupuncture is like fresh air, revitalizing your body and mind. Dr. Tatsuo Hirano, renowned acupuncturist to the stars and world-class performing artists, will help you get back to optimum health. To explore the healing arts of Oriental medicine, call Dr. Hirano at 818-244-2287. The first 20 callers will receive 10% off their first visit. Just say Donald Carpenter sent you.
Berndorf Law Offices, located in Los Angeles, is an employment, counseling, and litigation boutique law firm for California employers and executives. Employment laws change almost daily, and penalties for noncompliance are substantial. If you're an employer in Southern California and need assistance navigating the waters of employee relations, legal aspects of human resources management, or need defense against a lawsuit, our lawyers can help. Find us on the web at berndorflaw.com. That's BIRNDORFLAW.com. Or on Twitter at Law4CA Employers.
It's Donald Carpenter with the Family Man's Faith and Finance Show. We got a great guest on the line, Daniel C. Matson. How are you, sir?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on.
Great. Now, do you go by Daniel or Dan?
I go by Dan.
All right, Dan. It's Dan. It is. They always ask me that question: Don or Donald? And since I'm a junior and my dad was Don, I'm Donald. So, Dan, I got a little bit of your bio here I want to read through. From the back of your book, you're a writer and public speaker who proclaims the good news of the Catholic Church's teaching on homosexuality. Your story is told in the award-winning documentary, Desire of the Everlasting Hills. And as a professional, you are an orchestral trombone player, and you've performed and given master classes all around the world, including the famed St. Peter's Conservatory in Russia. Is that right?
That's right, yeah.
Anything you want to add to that?
Well, I'm just happy to be on your program talking about the book, and I never planned to be a speaker about the church's good news about homosexuality, but God has other plans offered for us.
Well, isn't that the truth? And sometimes you don't know what they are, and when you find out, you're grateful and surprised all at the same time.
That's right.
All right, so let's talk about the book. Now, the title, I think, is a little provocative, particularly in this day and age, because we have so many issues with words and identity. The words are so politicized. Identity is so politicized. And if you use the wrong labels, you're excoriated anywhere and everywhere. I was ranting, actually, last week about 3 weeks ago, they had a hearing at Washington, D.C. over the threat and attack on free speech in college campuses. And it just left me flabbergasted, so I ranted about an hour on that. But it leaves us with those kinds of that politicization and labeling. They leaves us with no room for discovery, no room for inquiry, and no room for growth, in my opinion. But you've written a book that sort of breaks away from all that. How'd you get the courage to do that?
Yeah, well, it's words are important. It's the way we communicate reality. And if you think about Christians, we are a religion of the word, literally, the Logos. Jesus is the Logos, the Word of God. We read in John, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And so there's something about language. We see in Genesis as well, God saw what he created, and then he gave it the right name. Mm-hmm. He separated the light from the darkness. He saw that it was good, and he called the darkness night and the light day. And, we see that whole pattern in Genesis. It leads up to that moment where we see the creation of the animals for Adam, and we read that God led the animals to Adam to see what he would call them. And, of course, what he called them, that was their name. Well, this is before the fall of man, right? So he saw with the eyes of God, but there's something divine. There's something about the image and likeness of God that is given to us in the naming of things, beholding things and judging what they are. And in the first words that we see Adam actually speak, I think are the most powerful words for man to understand himself. What are they? It's when Eve is finally brought to him, and he says, "She shall be called woman, for out of man she came." Mm-hmm. And then, of course, they became one flesh, and they modeled the love of the Trinity. It was not good for man to be alone, so God made a helpmate for him. And the two words that God used for human sexuality are male and female. And then in the New Testament, when he talked about divorce, he said, "Have you not read from the very beginning that he who named them male and female?" Mm-hmm. And so I argue in my book that really we should cling to the words that God and Christ himself used about our human sexuality, instead of dividing the world on a continuum of either gay or straight based on our feelings. That did a lot of damage to me, to think that, okay, I'm attracted to men. Well, it must mean I'm a gay man. Mm-hmm. And I really argue in the book that these words of gay, straight, and the whole spectrum, the gender that people make up words all the time. It's very confusing for especially young people. And so the words we use matter. The words we use in the church matter. And the words that are really fundamentally true about our human sexuality that we can count on are that we are male and female. So that's my little spiel about words in a nutshell.
Well, you brought up an interesting point about feelings, and that's that feelings have become more important and more valid than reality. They've become more valid and important than science in many circles. The subjective has been, how I feel about something, how I experience something, has been raised to the universal. So my own one experience needs to be universalized for everyone's now to be everyone's reality. And it becomes the repudiation of science. So where we have all these labels, but we deny genetics. I think that's kind of what you're saying.
Well, and especially for young people, and this is where we can actually think of an abuse of science, where we'll say that, well, the experts, the quote unquote experts of gender queer studies, and they would say that this is a scientific investigation that says that people are on this whole spectrum. In the name of science, now we have experts going into schools telling impressionable young people that you can plot your sexuality on a grid. Mm-hmm. And you're exactly right. The objective science has shown that these sorts of sexual traits, like my attraction to men, is not genetic. There was a great desire to find a gay gene. Well, the whole genome has been mapped, and there is no gay gene. Mm-hmm. But now we have this whole ideological push that you have to support who I feel myself to be, and doggone it, if you resist against it, we're also going to use an abusive language. I write about the abusive language, and we're going to tell you you're a homophobe or you're a transphobe or something, which are just ways to really stifle a free exchange of ideas about reality. And that's one of the big pushes of my book, is that we have to work in our society to reclaim reality and to be bold about it, and believe that the church's teaching on chastity is really good news for a lost and confused world.
Well, that's an interesting point you bring up, because I wasn't sure what to expect from your book. And I'd heard, parts of presentations you've given and written little excerpts. But what impressed me most was the sensitivity. I mean, you really come from a place where you describe in more detail than I thought I was going to read, about the pain of your life and how you suffered through sort of this whole idea of who you were, discovering who you were, if you will.
Well, I wanted to be pretty honest about the wounds, because I really do believe that those people who identify as gay or lesbian or bisexual, the feelings that they have for the same sex are rooted really in wounds in our psychosexual development. Now, the church doesn't say exactly why someone like me would be attracted to the same sex, but does say that the genesis of it it's a psychological genesis, and I see that clearly in my own story. And I'm pretty vulnerable. I'm pretty honest about some of my own pains, my own suffering, and my own doubts about my own masculinity, and being rejected by other girls growing up, and not feeling in the company of other boys, just feeling very different and isolated from other boys. And that's a common story in the men and women I know who live with same-sex attraction, a very painful relationship with members of the same sex growing up, or maybe an overbearing father. Some people used to, we used to talk about these things when I was growing up. These things were talked about, but now it's politically incorrect to say that, maybe a boy who grows up with same-sex attractions is intimidated by other boys and other men and adult figures in their lives. Like Little League was a major league nightmare for me. You know.
Oh, me too, man. I
It
hate
was-
Little League so much; it's ridiculous. And not to any credit of mine, but my friends were really, really good at it, and they talked me into talking my dad into being the coach. And oh man, for me, it was a nightmare because I was expected to be, as the coach's son, a really good player, and I was horrible. And I was like, Dad, let's go throw the ball and get some practice. He'd be like, No, I got to work on with these other kids that are on your team. I'm like, Thanks a lot, Dad. That's funny.
Right. Well, in fact, the matter is and that makes a point too, that a lot of people can have a bad experience, say, with sports or feel outside of other boys, and not all of them are going to have same-sex attraction.
Right.
We're all different, but I really map out a clear trajectory. I can clearly see where there were wounds in my life that led to same-sex attraction, and thanks be to God, through His grace, I went the way of the world. Who you feel yourself to be is who you are. I lived that out for a while.
Right.
But it was ultimately unsatisfactory.
Right.
And I tell that story, kind of how I came back to the church. And that's another reason I wrote the book, is to give hope to people to say, look, there is a way out. And believe it or not, the church is the place where you're going to find the true freedom and happiness you're looking for.
Yeah. Hey, Daniel, we're about at the end of the segment. Tell us how we can get a hold of your book, and then I'm going to hold you over, and you can come back and we talk about this some more.
Sounds great. Well, it's published by Ignatius Press. You can get it at ignatius.com or most of your local Catholic bookstores, of course, at Amazon. But sure appreciate you having me on the show.
No, hang on. I'm gonna have you on for another segment.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Hang on. We got more to talk about. This is Donald Carpenter with the Family Man's Faith and Finance Show. We'll be right back.
NBC Talk Radio, 1050 AM.
Some combinations were just meant to go together. Chips and salsa, refrigerator and freezer, the internet, and those cute little cat videos. At State Farm, there's another combination meant to go together: home and auto, as in combining your home and auto insurance with one agent, which leads to another combination, saving dollars and cents. Your State Farm agent, the DeSalvo Insurance Agency, is here to help life go right. Combine home and auto and see how much you can save. For more information, call the DeSalvo Insurance Agency at 310-553-0241 in Beverly Hills, or find him on the web at BillDeSalvo.com. That's BILLDISALVO.com.
Hi, this is Donald Carpenter. I've written a pretty interesting book. It's called The Family Man's Stock Market Volatility Survival Guide: How to Defend Your Family in Any Economy. To pick up a copy of The Family Man's Stock Market Volatility Survival Guide, go to Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, or the website FamilyManSMVSG.com.
We want to share a secret with you. There's a new and revolutionary way to bring the Earth's most effective organic plant extracts directly to your skin in a pure and healthy way. Lule Botanicals utilizes a breakthrough process called supercritical plant extraction. Your skin will radiate vitality and health like never before. No one wants to kiss an alligator face. Now they won't have to. Visit us on the web at www.lulebotanicals.com. That's LOULEBOTANICALS.com. To get your 20% discount, use promo code LLB20.
Dr. Tatsuo Hirano asks, why suffer and ignore your pain and illness? Stop it before it gets out of control. Acupuncture is like fresh air, revitalizing your body and mind. Dr. Tatsuo Hirano, renowned acupuncturist to the stars and world-class performing artists, will help you get back to optimum health. To explore the healing arts of Oriental medicine, call Dr. Hirano at 818-244-2287. The first 20 callers will receive 10% off their first visit. Just say Donald Carpenter sent you.
Berndorf Law Offices, located in Los Angeles, is an employment, counseling, and litigation boutique law firm for California employers and executives. Employment laws change almost daily, and penalties for noncompliance are substantial. If you're an employer in Southern California and need assistance navigating the waters of employee relations, legal aspects of human resources management, or need defense against a lawsuit, our lawyers can help. Find us on the web at berndorflaw.com. That's BIRNDORFLAW.com. Or on Twitter at Law4CA Employers.
Donald Carpenter with the Family Man's Faith and Finance Show. Oh, welcome back. And we have on Dan Matson. He's written a book called Why I Don't Call Myself Gay, How I Reclaimed My Sexual Reality and Found Peace. And I'm glad you found peace, Dan. You know, one of the things we were talking about was the sense of feelings versus the rational. And they've done there's been a lot of studies done on the brain centers of pleasure and addiction, and how there's a connection between being over-sexualized and how it affects the centers of pleasure in the brain, and being overstimulated by narcotics, and how they affect the same centers in the brain. And you were talking about, how you were more being defined by how you felt about yourself than, I guess, what the church had described as, male and female. And maybe you can talk a little bit about that, falling into a life of sort of living for your passion, I guess, if you will.
Well, yeah, that's the great battle that we read about in St. Paul's life. He says, basically, you can sum up what he was pulled in two different directions, just like we all are. He said, I do that which I do not want to do, and that what I want to do, I seem not to be able to do, basically. And we've all heard about St. Paul's thorn in the flesh. He said, I have this thorn in the flesh, and I prayed to God, please take it away 3 times. And each time he said, no, my grace is sufficient. Well, in reading and researching my book, I discovered that a lot of the church fathers believed and taught that St. Paul's thorn in the flesh was a temptation to unchastity. St. Alphonsus Liguori wrote the same thing, and he's a doctor of the church. And so really what we see there, I find a great model for St. Paul in striving for virtue, which is ruling our passions. We are either governed by our passions or we govern our passions. And that's guided by, are we guided by our feelings and our desire for pleasure? Now, pleasure has its place. You can enjoy, I'm in Michigan, and peaches are ripe. I mean, there's a good pleasure in having a bite into a ripe peach, and of course, sex has its pleasure, but pleasure must be guided by reason and where it's proper for us to use that. And thanks be to God, there are so many saints before me that figured this out. Saint Augustine, what did he say? He said, "Give me chastity, Lord, but not yet."
Can we hold that chastity stuff off for a while?
What's that?
I said, can we
hold on just for a second? Hold it off,
please, Lord.
Please, Lord, not quite yet. But he finally realized through the difficulty of his own life and his choices, he fathered a woman out of wedlock, fathered a child out of wedlock, rather. And, he tasted the pleasures of the forbidden fruit, as it were, but he discovered, no, I am happier and will be more of fully who I was created to be if I refrain from those sexual pleasures, because it's a gift from God given to married people. And now I used to think to myself, well, that's not fair. That's not fair to me.
Right.
But now I realize, no, that's the right use for that, and I'm a fool to use it when I'm not married. Right. It will only hurt me.
That's interesting, because I was really impressed by your quotation of Camille Pagula and her attestation that sex is ordered for procreation. I'm like, wait a second, what modern philosopher espouses that? But I was shocked, and I was like, well, yeah, that's kind of getting away from the feelings and passion argument as the definer of human nature to science and biology, and every single species on the planet has a male and female counterpart, and while there is pleasure in sex, the very attributes of the physical tools, if you will, using a mechanical analogy, are oriented toward making a baby. I mean, that's what it's for.
Right, and we ignore reality at our peril. It's very interesting today. KLM Dutch Airlines, it's apparently Amsterdam Pride, and they have a little tweet today, and they have a picture of rainbow-colored seatbelts, and they have none of the seatbelts are together, but there's one that actually will click together, quote unquote, the male and female side, and then they have what we would say was two males or two females, and then the tweet says, "It doesn't matter who you click with, we support you. Happy Pride." Well, the fact of the matter is, if you're on a plane and you're worried about going down, you better have the one that clicks.
Oh, that's funny.
It's reality.
Yeah.
We're made for each other.
Yeah.
No matter how much we want to pretend that reality doesn't exist, or we want to change reality, it's there. And Camille Paglia, I admire her, even though she's in support of same-sex marriage. She embraces reality and then says, "But we have the right, and we should change reality or push against reality." She's at least honest about reality.
Yep.
Whereas most gay rights activists just deny reality, and that comes to haunt us. We have kids that are so confused now because of we're ignoring reality, and our kids are part of a social experiment, and they're suffering greatly for it. And this is one reason, too, why I think the church has to be bold in proclaiming the truth in this world we're living in, for the sake of our children.
Yeah, you raise an interesting point, because in secular society today, everything is sacred. I mean, we have to do everything we can to protect the environment. We have to, battle against climate change. We have to protect the animals. We have to save the eagles. We have to, endangered. Nobody should be big game hunting. We got to clean up the oceans. Everything is sacred in life and nature, except for one ugly mistake somewhere along the line. And that just happens to be the most ingenious, clever, beautiful creation of anything that's ever walked the earth, and that's human beings. I mean, we build giant skyscrapers, automobiles, rocket ships. I mean, we plant food for millions across the globe. I mean, yeah, there are abuses. I get it. But we're the only species that has the capacity to do that, and we're the only ones considered not sacred and not flawed in that. And the only organism that we are striving so hard to alter its nature. Everything else has to protect its nature, but nope, human beings, you have to change the basic fundamental nature of human beings. I'm just going to go on a rant here, but I'm going to stop myself and then let you tell us in the last few minutes we've got here what the official Catholic teaching is on homosexuality.
Well, yes, the official teaching on homosexuality is basically the same teaching for everyone. It is that we have to live guided by the virtue of chastity. And that means for me as a single person with same-sex attraction that I'm going to refrain from sexual activity with someone else. And I take comfort in the churches pointing out to me that, look, you're a man above all else. And so I identify not as some sort of sexual minority who has to live this chaste life, but I identify with all of my single friends who happen to be unmarried for whatever reason. And my burden, my cross is no greater than theirs. And of course, the Catechism is very clear to me. Well, I have to rely on the sacraments, the sacrament of reconciliation, the Eucharist. And it says, look, just like anyone else, I can gradually and resolutely pursue Christian perfection. I mean, that's the church's teaching to everyone. People who are married are called to chastity. Not just a man like me. So the church's teaching, I really take a lot of time to unpack it in my book and to try to show that it's actually an invitation to a better life. I always hate it when people say, "Oh, all the church says to you, Dan, is no, 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 no." No, the fact of the matter is the church says yes to me. When it says no to certain things, it's in service of this great yes to my human dignity. And so the church teaching is basically the same for me as it is for any other single person. And it's very liberating. It's like a guardrail to safety in my life. And I have come to just love the church's teaching and really want to promote it as good news.
Well,
in this world that's gone so crazy.
That's absolutely right. And if we're called to a life of holiness, and we're called to a life of sanctity, and we're called to a life of sacrifice and doing what's best out of love for the other, then we're called to a life that doesn't abuse ourselves or abuses others. And a lot of people don't know that about life within marriage, but we're required to do what's best for the other and not live a hedonistic, wanton, winner-take-all relationship in marriage, but to live a life of sacrifice the same way that Jesus did for the church. Hey, it's been great having you on. Tell us again the title of your book and how to get it.
Yeah, well, I don't call myself gay, How I Reclaim My Sexuality and Found Peace. And you can find it at Ignatius.com or Amazon.com or your local bookstore. But thanks so much for having me on. It was a real pleasure and honor to be with you.
Great conversation, and we look forward to having you back. You come on back with us, would you?
Sounds good. I'll do it.
All right. This is Donald Carpenter with Dan Madsen, the Family Man's Faith and Finance Show, and we'll be right back.
NBC Talk Radio, 1050 AM.
Some combinations were just meant to go together. Chips and salsa, refrigerator and freezer, the internet, and those cute little cat videos. At State Farm, there's another combination meant to go together. Home and auto. As in combining your home and auto insurance with one agent. Which leads to another combination, saving dollars and cents. Your State Farm agent, the DeSalvo Insurance Agency, is here to help life go right. Combine home and auto and see how much you can save. For more information, call the DeSalvo Insurance Agency at 310-553-0241 in Beverly Hills, or find him on the web at BillDeSalvo.com. That's BILLDISALVO.com.
Hi, this is Donald Carpenter. I've written a pretty interesting book. It's called The Family Man's Stock Market Volatility Survival Guide, How to Defend Your Family in Any Economy. To pick up a copy of The Family Man's Stock Market Volatility Survival Guide, go to Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, or the website FamilyManSMVSG.com.
We want to share a secret with you. There's a new and revolutionary way to bring the Earth's most effective organic plant extracts directly to your skin in a pure and healthy way. Lule Botanicals utilizes a breakthrough process called supercritical plant extraction. Your skin will radiate vitality and health like never before. No one wants to kiss an alligator face. Now they won't have to. Visit us on the web at www.lulebotanicals.com. That's LULEIBOTANICALS.com. To get your 20% discount, use promo code LLB20.
Dr. Tatsuo Hirano asks, why suffer and ignore your pain and illness? Stop it before it gets out of control. Acupuncture is like fresh air, revitalizing your body and mind. Dr. Tatsuo Hirano, renowned acupuncturist to the stars and world-class performing artists, will help you get back to optimum health. To explore the healing arts of Oriental medicine, Call Dr. Hirano at 818-244-2287. The first 20 callers will receive 10% off their first visit. Just say Donald Carpenter sent you.
Berndorf Law Offices, located in Los Angeles, is an employment, counseling, and litigation boutique law firm for California employers and executives. Employment laws change almost daily, and penalties for noncompliance are substantial. If you're an employer in Southern California and need assistance navigating the waters of employee relations, legal aspects of human resources management, or need defense against a lawsuit, our lawyers can help. Find us on the web at berndorflaw.com. That's BIRNDORFLAW.com. Or on Twitter at Law4CA Employers.
Donald Carpenter is back with the Family Man's Faith and Finance Show. And, man, I'm glad we're back together. Wasn't that a great conversation with Dan Matson? Man, what a good little book he's written. And I would recommend everybody go out and get it. Why I Don't Call Myself Gay, How I Reclaimed My Sexual Reality and Found Peace. And peace in Jesus. Hey, so I haven't talked about this in a long while, but, a few years ago, hurt my back working out really bad. Had to go to the emergency room after 3 days of trying to suffer it out on my own, which I couldn't take. They ended up giving me morphine. Didn't kill the pain. I went and saw Dr. Tatsuo Hirano. He gave me some acupuncture, which did not hurt one bit. I fell asleep on the table while he was giving me the acupuncture twice. How do I know? I woke myself up snoring. I haven't had back pain for 6 years. And he treats performance athletes. He treats performance artists. He's got a big practice. I know it's probably a little bit of a drive, but if you want to get back to your athletic, in good shape, if you're in pain, or if you're just in pain and you want to get out of pain, go see him. Give Dr. Tatsuo Hirano a call, man. He really knows this stuff. And I didn't do acupuncture before that, but I'm raving about it now because it really stopped the pain in one day. Not going to maybe not do that for everybody, but it sure worked for me, and it was worth a try. So give him a call. He'll consult with you over the phone. Look him up on the internet. Dr. Tatsuo Hirano. Anyway, and those ladies at Lule Botanicals, if you want to be more beautiful and get your skin all nice and shiny and beautiful and wonderful and make you look like a fairy princess, those ladies, they got the magic serum for beauty. They are the genius queens of beauty. I would suggest getting some of their products because my wife uses them, and, man, they're really good. So I'm going to talk about the week ahead, the markets. I'm going to talk about some finance, and so I got to read my disclaimer. Anything I say about markets and investing is presented for informational purposes only. The information I give is not a recommendation to buy or sell any security or any investment. The information I give is not legal advice. It's not tax advice. It's not accounting advice. The information that I'm giving you is just for entertainment and educational purposes only. All investments have risk. All investments go up or down in price. You need to consult your own financial professional before investing. And if you want me to be that financial professional, then give me a call, 310-777-6777. Hey, remember what happened 2 weeks ago or last week when I was talking to you guys? It said GDP had accelerated and was going crazy, and we're in a raging bull market. And the NASDAQ reached 3 all-time highs in the same week. Yep, well, it's still going on. Did you see the jobs report that came out on Friday? Jobs. It was expected 178,000. We got 209. Unemployment dipped from 4.4% to 4.3%. I mean, I don't know how to say it any more clearly, but we are in a raging bull market. The economy is in a growth pattern. It's going to stay that way, in my opinion, for another few months, if not potentially another year. I mean, we are in really good shape economically, as opposed to kind of the rest of the world. The European economies, because of their population crises, their older populations are expanding. They are starting to slow down, and the same thing's going on in Asia. It's been going on for 20 years in Japan already, but now China's starting to catch up. And their population crisis, with the older generation becoming bigger than the younger generation, they're slowing down as well. So it looks like growth and economic, the driver of economic engine in the world is going to be the United States for the next foreseeable future. So If you've got your politics and your portfolio management, you got to stop it. Stop it right now. Get out of there. Get some. Take advantage of this growth that we've got going on in the market because it's pretty amazing. And like I said, our clients are up over 17%. We're not doing anything unusual or taking any undue risk, while the markets are at about 11.5%. The S&P 500, to be specific. So I wouldn't buy at the all-time highs because that's a good way to lose money. You pick your spots, buy stuff when it's low, buy stuff as it's trading in its range. When it reaches the bottom of its range, go ahead and step in, buy something, let it ride it up, sell it at the top. You know how they used to say, and they still say, and you ought to be doing, and that is that you should be buying low, selling high. All right, so we got the week ahead. What's going on? Well, today we had the Gallup consumer spending. Guess what? It was the highest consumer spending since May of 2008. There you go, guys. Come on, consumers. Get out there, buy some stuff. Go to Walmart. Go to Kmart. Go to Target. Go out and buy. That our economy is driven. 72% of our economy is driven by consumer spending. So that's great. And why are they spending? Because they have money. Why they have money? Because they have a job. Why they have a job? Because the economy is doing really well, irrespective of your silly politics. And let's see, tomorrow, the NFIB Small Business Optimism Index comes out, Redbook and JOLTS. Wednesday, MBA mortgage applications, productivity and costs, wholesale trade, and the EIA petroleum report. Thursday, jobless claims, the PPI final demand numbers come out, producer price index, that is. The final demand numbers come out, so we know how things have actually gone from consumers to businesses. The Bloomberg Consumer Comfort Index, the EIA natural gas report, the Fed balance sheet, the money supply, because Thursday's always the big day. And Friday, we got Consumer Price Index, CPI, that'll be good. And the Baker Hughes rig count, and by that'll be good, I'm expecting that will indicate that the markets are going to continue to do what they have been doing, which is go up based on a accelerating economy. So we have growth accelerating, and we have inflation decelerating, which is the best of all worlds when it comes to an accelerating growth economy. And we're in it. We're in it. We're in it to win it. Come on, guys, get involved. It's pretty amazing. You can stand to make yourself a little bit of money here. So it's really interesting. I was reading in the New Testament. I was reading in Matthew, and it was the Matthew chapter 14, and there was a John the Baptist had just been beheaded, and the news came to Jesus, and they told him, and Jesus was really not happy about that, and he left, and he got in a boat, and he was going to go mourn and go pray, but the crowds got word of it that he was going to be where he was going, and so when he got off the boat on the other side of on the other shore, they were there. 5,000 guys, 5,000 men had followed him, plus women and children. And the apostles, the 12, came up to him and they said, well, what are we going to do with all these people? It's late and we should just dismiss them, let them go and get something to eat. And he said, well, Matthew 14:16, give them some food yourselves. Usually whenever there was a crisis or a problem or some issue that the apostles couldn't solve, that wasn't Jesus' response. Usually he would just heal the person or raise them from the dead or, make some miracle happen that was that everyone could see, that this guy could do something that nobody else could. Maybe he was actually telling the truth when he said he was the Son of God. But he didn't this time. He said, you go give them some food yourselves. And they looked at each other and they said, well, we've got, 5 loaves and a couple of fish among us. But you know what they had to do? They had to go find that. And they did find it. And they found that that's all that they had. And sometimes when you feel like God isn't answering your prayers, or he's not talking to you the way he should be talking to you, or he's not doing for you what you think he should be doing for you, maybe God is saying exactly what Jesus said to the apostles. Go give them some food yourselves. In other words, he wants us to take the step. I mean, that's what happened with Peter, right? He said, Lord, you're walking on the water. And he says, yeah, come on out. The water's fine. And he takes the step. He goes, oh, okay, if you're there, I'll go. And he takes the first step. And what happens? He sinks because why? The waves were big and he got worried and he was nervous. And Jesus gave him a little bit of a chastisement and said, you got to have a little more faith in that, Peter. And sometimes that's the way it is with us. We are called to do the thing that we are expecting God to do for us. We are called to take the first step. We are called to go get the food for others. We are called to perform the miracle and to do it ourselves. And we're not called, but we're never called to do it all by ourselves. It reminds me of a statement, a very famous statement by Saint Teresa of Avila, who said, Christ has no body on earth but yours, no hands but yours, no feet but yours. You are the eyes through which Christ's compassion for the world is to look out. Yours are the feet with which he is to go out doing good, and yours are the hands with which he is to bless us now. That's St. Teresa of Avila. And I think that's exactly right. I think that's the whole point. You're called to live a life of sacrifice and personal responsibility. You're called to do it with God's help. Give it everything you've got, like Denzel Washington said. This is Donald Carpenter with Family Man's Faith and Finance Show. I look forward to having you back next week. God bless.
KCAA Loma Linda, 1050 AM, 106.5 FM, and now 102.3 FM.
See another record setter on Wall Street. The Dow up about 26 points to a new all-time high. The S&P 4 points higher, also a record. The Nasdaq picked up 32, but no record there. Investors gobbled up shares of Tyson Foods. Grilling season lifted pork and beef sales. American demand for chicken this year will set a record. Armstrong Flooring closing 2 plants in the South. Those plants